Okay. So I'm just going to wait a few minutes for our participants to join. I'm going to put my microphone on quiet in a moment, onto mute. But when you join, if you could please pop your name into the chat and say hi. I see lots of old friends and faces in there, and keep any questions, any specific questions that you might have, if you could please pop those into the Q&A section. Then that would be really good, and then we can pick those up at the end of the session. So I will just put this here for a moment, and when people join, we'll say hi. Oh, hello, we've got our first guest. This is exciting. Hello there, hi. It's lovely to see you here on this fine sunny, maybe sunny November morning. Hello there, hi. It's nice to see you all. It's quite encouraging that there are people who do get up on a Sunday morning for these things. So, Suzanne, is there anything in particular that you're specifically interested in, or is there? Are you here to sort of top up your knowledge? I know you're quite an experienced German teacher, to say the least. So, if there's anything in particular that you're wanting to find out, then do say. And hopefully hopefully I'll have covered it already, but if not, we can add it into the end. Hi there. Hi, got some more people joining as well. Hello. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to see everybody. Hello. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Gosh, being the first slot on a Sunday morning was a bit daunting, I thought, but it's nice to see everybody. It's really good. Now, don't forget, I need to remind you all as well, as per the guidance here, is that if you could please put any questions into the Q&A section, and we'll tackle the Q&As at the end. It's just that in the chat section, which is more of a social chit chat, if things progress quickly, we can sometimes miss some of the questions that get asked. So do use the chat to say hi and to introduce yourself and to catch up with friends and so on. But for the questions and answers, if you could put them into the Q&A bit, and then at the end I can pull it up on a clever box and read them off without having to scroll through the chat, which would make things really easy, much easier for me. I think I had a message from somebody the other day to say that they were going to be joining us from Georgia this morning. So like the country, not the state, Georgia. So I was quite impressed. I think they definitely win the shout out so far for the furthest away. Oh, hello. Oh, we've got some message there. Hi there. Oh, excellent. So I went with hints and tips. Here's Germany making it. Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, we've got a little section about how we're managing to put our exchanges on in this post-COVID period. So hopefully that might be helpful. And you might get some insight there. I'm not by any means claiming that my way is the only way to do things, but we seem to have found a handy compromise and a handy way of getting through and navigating all the post-COVID, post-Brexit way of doing things for trips. So hopefully that will be helpful. And I've got later on in the presentation, there's a link, like a QR code link to a Dropbox of various different documents and resources and things like that. And in there are some of the exchange documents that I've used as well that might be helpful to some of you. So yeah, what would be really interesting to know as well is any other schools or colleges who've managed to start or restart exchanges and trips in the last year or so, and the kind of benefit or support that they've received, if at all, from any other organisations, or whether they've done it all on their own, or whether they've had, for example, a long-standing exchange arrangement which they've managed to resurrect and keep alive. All of those different situations would be fascinating to hear from others about as well. I wonder if anybody has their local town twinning organisation, for example, can often be quite a useful source of initial help and support in terms of making connections, even if then a school has to take over the practical details of it. So there we are. Right. Okay, I think it's 20 past 10 now. I'll just wait a minute or two more. Gosh, lots of people in here already. That's very exciting. And then we'll start. And just we want to make sure that everybody who wants to join has had a chance to grab a coffee and a bacon sandwich and join us today. And then we can get back inside. I'm quite conscious of the time for this because, of course, we need to finish quite promptly at 11, so that the remembrance, the 2-minute silence can take place. There's a special scheduled moment for that as well. So there we go. Okay, I think it's probably about time that we can start now. Well, it's lovely to meet everybody virtually and to see so many of you joining this wonderful, wet, miserable November morning. I'm based in Suffolk at the moment, and the weather's not looking great, to be honest. But I'm sure there's going to be many of you joining, not just from all over the UK, but potentially from other parts of the world, and potentially also watching this for weeks to come as well. So it's very exciting, and I'm very honoured that you've chosen to attend this talk, and I hope that it's incredibly useful for you. And I have put my contact details, my email address, and my Twitter handle on that first page there. So if you have any questions, then do please just drop me a line, or if you want to talk anything through, or if you want some ideas, or whatever kind of questions that might arise that perhaps don't get answered today, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. Now I need to introduce you all to somebody very special to me, and this is my friend and colleague Denise Anstinsky. And
hello.
Hello. And Denise is actually a visiting German teacher of English and French who's over in Suffolk at the moment with me at my school, taking part in the UK German Connection Host a Teacher programme. And we'll talk a bit more about that shortly. But Denise, you're 2 weeks into a 3-week period.
Exactly.
Haven't gone home early yet or anything?
No. Making many
how are you finding
experiences.
things? Yeah, how are you finding things so far?
Yeah, a really great experience. So helping out your students to speak some German, getting some speaking practice, and for myself making many useful experiences in the UK.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity, isn't it? And Denise teaches in a small town called Emstetten, which is to the north of Münster in Germany, and you teach at our partner school. So we've got up to quite a lot of projects together over the last couple of years. So anyway, she's here today, and I thought, well, who better to have here in our talk about things. So let's see. Yes, just a quick reminder, any questions, put them into the Q&A. I realize the arrow on my thing is down there, but I think on my screen it's now up there. So sorry to confuse things, but I'm sure you'll find it. If you get totally stuck, then just bung it in the chat and I'm sure we'll find it somewhere, but let's try and put them into the Q&A. Right, yes, let's see, let's get cracking, shall we? So this talk is going to cover, it's going to be quite a whistle-stop tour through various different sources of funding and support for projects and trips and just teaching in general for German within the UK. We're going to have, it's three rough sections, but like the very best types of Venn diagrams, there's usually quite a lot of overlap in the middle. So there may be a brief bit of repetition of some things. We're going to look mainly at organisations which can support teaching and learning, and also trips and projects and so on, competitions and so on are also all included in that. I've got some examples of some of the exchange documents that we've used in the past, because I know, talking to colleagues, German teaching colleagues here in the UK, one of the big things is the actual practicalities and the logistics of organising exchanges, and especially post-Brexit and post-COVID. So we're going to cover that really briefly as well, about how we approach it, and also looking at some sources of general support, both practical and moral supports, because we do need that sometimes as German teachers in the UK. The QR code on that page is should take you to a Dropbox folder where you can download a number of different types of resources from this talk, and some of those exchange documents as well, and I'll explain a bit more when we come across those in the presentation, and that QR code will be available at the end as well. So let's have a look now. Gosh, let's see if I can press the right button here without connecting with us. Okay, first up, one of the main organisations in the UK, which is absolutely fantastic for providing both practical and financial support for all sorts of types of projects, whether they're youth club projects or school projects, primary school, secondary school, further education, whatever, is the UK German Connection. And I honestly cannot praise this team enough. They're absolutely incredible. They have a huge range of projects and there's always loads of projects going on as well. They've recently done a textiles sustainability project up in Scotland, and they've done and they provide funding for setting up exchanges and for continuing exchanges and for doing visiting trips and for doing all sorts of collaborative projects which might not even involve a visit. So I mean, it's almost like the one-stop shop. If you're looking to do some kind of project or trip or what have you with a German school, then go to the UK German Connection, and there's bound to be something there that will support it in some way or another. I've been working in different schools over the years, and we've done a number of different types of projects in that time with the UK German Connection. The hosted teacher one, by which Denise is staying with us at the moment, is one of them. Fellowship exchanges, where individual students from our last year's German exchange are also receiving funding to conduct their own mini project-based exchanges as well. There's so much there. It's absolutely wonderful. And rather excitingly, the German pupil courses and the German scholarships, which pre-COVID used to run face-to-face and then went virtual for a couple of years, I have it under very reliable assurance that they're going to be starting up again in person very, very soon, if they haven't already, rather than virtually, which is brilliant. I know several students of mine have taken part in those in the past, and they're absolutely brilliant. So for example, 2 weeks language holidays in Berlin and other places, and also some scholarships to take part in all sorts of things. So that's really, really exciting. And I know that obviously it had taken a bit of a hit over COVID, but that's all up and running. I've obviously put the website for many of these organisations, but they do of course all have their own social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram mainly. But all of those details are on obviously the main websites as well. What else do we have now? Yes, in the Dropbox, there are links to these PDF documents. Now, these screenshots here are only a part of the different PDF documents. There's 2 separate ones which outline all the different opportunities for schools and teachers in one of them, and opportunities for young people in the other one. So if you go to those QR codes with your phone, and you'll be able to download those individual PDF documents, and there's loads and loads of information there about all the different projects they do. I wouldn't be able to do it justice in the couple of minutes that I've got. There's so many different things that they have going on, and they're a very, very amenable lot, and they're very, very delightful and enthusiastic. And so you can also phone them up and say, look, we'd like to do something like this. How could you help us? And they will probably have something on it that they can do to assist. So the UK and German Connection is wonderful. Denise, we conducted the first part of our exchange last summer, didn't we, using liaising
Exactly.
with some funding from the UK German Connection as well, and we're hoping to investigate options for future visits too. But the UK German Connection obviously has a German side as well, and you've worked quite closely with them, haven't you?
Yeah. So so we've done this project in our town last school year, and we're hoping to make it a proper exchange over the next few years.
Yeah, and they can provide funding for both sides, so not
Yeah.
just British schools, but also for German schools as well. So that's a real benefit. There's a real reciprocity there, a real balance. So that's really encouraging, and they give extensive guidance to German schools and so on too. Okay, right, next up we have the Goethe Institute, and obviously in the UK there's a branch in London, there's also a branch in Glasgow as well, and as you probably know already, they do an immense range of different cultural and linguistic activities for all sorts of age groups and specialisms and so on. Next on the horizon for German teachers in the UK is the Deutschlehrerinnen-Tag, which is on the 26th of November. And just on the corner of your screen there, you can see the little outline of the day. And you can see there's some real rock stars of German education there, with Wanda and Stephanie and Judith and Andrea, Simone and Emma, and absolute rock stars in all of this. And they're going to be presenting some quite interesting and creative approaches to assist secondary school German teachers. And if you haven't already done so, then please try and register and get a place, because it's an absolutely brilliant experience. And finally, it is also taking place in person too. I'm particularly interested in this one about virtual reality Anwendungen, zur Motivierung von Deutschlernenden. We have in the college that I teach in some quite fancy and expensive virtual reality labs being built, and so I would like to be able to go in there and say, I know how to use these, and I'm going to use these virtual reality things. So I think that's going to be quite exciting. Really, really good. Really looking forward to that. And there's also lots and lots of other things that they offer, and in particular they've asked me to emphasize these. I think Emma did a presentation actually on Friday about a lot of things in more detail that the Goethe Institute offer. So what I'm covering here is probably just scratching the surface in comparison to what she presented on Friday, but it's similar kind of things. So lots of sort of webinars and upskilling type CPD to help German teachers in the form of Deutsch lehren, lernen und kennenlernen. They have loads and loads of teaching resources and advertising kits. I love those little badges that say Bitte and Danke and Mutti and Liebe and things like that. They've got all those kind of things. Not to forget also is that they can put on tailored visits for school trips, for schools, for talks, for meeting with ambassadors for film screenings and so on. And so I'm hoping to take students up there fairly soon too. What else have we got here? And also they're always on the lookout for young German ambassadors. So any sixth formers or university students who would like to blow the trumpet about learning German, then there's always an opportunity, an ongoing opportunity to join as the young German ambassador for the Goethe Institute. Let's see what's next. And also they, of course, also have an online magazine, Magazin Sprache, and there's a range of different articles about teaching German all over the world, and different methods, techniques and resources contained in there. It's always worth a pop in. Let's have a look. So next up we have the Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, I think that Brexit and COVID have kind of hit the functioning a little bit of the DAAD. However, they're still going very, very strong in the context of higher education in particular and study abroad programs. And they have a huge database of summer language courses at German universities, which I'd completely forgotten about. And I spent many a happy hour yesterday afternoon having a little search through to see if I could find a course that I could do. But then, of course, I don't think I can justify leaving my own kids for that long. For which some funding is available. And some of these courses are just available to university students, but some of them are available to non-university students as well. So, for example, students who are between A-levels and university might be interested in these kinds of courses, and those who maybe want to continue German at university, or even refresh German before they go to university. And that's the first QR code on there. And then the second QR code on there is the DAAD German language competition, which is open to everybody. And every year they have a really fascinating theme to do with literature, maybe, or culture, or music, or something in current affairs. It's really, really, really impressive. It's open to all students of all ages, and information is there. And generally, if you have any questions to do with post-Brexit travel to Germany or study, then the DAAD is going to be the first port of call. They've also got quite a lot of information on their webpage about student visas for studying in Germany post-Brexit, which I found quite reassuring. I think quite reassuring. Okay, doing okay so far. The next amazing organisation that I can point in your direction is the German Tourist Board here in the UK, called Visit Germany, and they've got loads and loads of information that you can use in your teaching, which I'd forgotten all about as well. I've had it again last couple of weeks, had fun poking around and exploring all of these things. They've got a huge image library of Germany, German resources and so on, and it's free to access. It takes a couple of days, just like good old Deutsche Bürokratie, to get a login for you, but there's a huge database full of copyright-free images and so on that you can use in your teaching, or for displays and things like that, and that's really, really useful. So they've got some really, really stunning pictures there. They've also got lots of facts and figures about Germany as a tourist destination, which might be helpful for older students perhaps, when you're talking about statistics and trying to get them to explain, changes and movements and all sorts of things. Loads and loads of information about Germany as a tourist destination, and loads. Their YouTube channel has got lots of clips and footage and so on that can be used to advertise German in your schools, or just to reminisce about as well. Really, really stunningly shot videos, and again, of course, they're all over social media too. What they also have, which is absolutely fantastic, is the newsletter. What they also have, which I think I must have missed off on the bottom of this, is a internship every year, and they are it's like a rolling application deadline, and they're looking for native English or native German speakers to be Praktikanten in the London office of the German Tourist Board. I shall, after this meeting, I shall put the PDF that they have sent me into the Dropbox so that you can access that as well. But that looks like a really, really good opportunity perhaps for sixth formers, for example, between school and uni, or doing a gap year, or for university students doing on summer vacation, to be able to do something German, very German, but stay in the UK if, for example, finances or student visas don't otherwise allow. So I shall put that into the folder at the end. I apologise for missing that one off. Okay, good. The other source, which is a relatively newer one, is of course the Turing scheme, which has been set up by the government to apparently replace Erasmus. It's the emphasis on the Turing scheme. Some of you may have been involved in these kinds of projects already. Is on the emphasis is on widening participation to otherwise disadvantaged pupils or students who wouldn't normally have an opportunity to do a particular type of project or to travel. It's open to schools, primary all the way through to sixth form. It's further education, higher education, plus training and so on, particularly for further education. And the awards can be quite substantial, but they're all calculated on the basis of how far you go, how many students you take, what type of project you're doing, and so on. So it's quite a complicated application process, and not all applications are successful, and it does seem to be a bit random as to who actually gets the money awarded to them and who doesn't. But if you haven't already got a Turing representative, if that's the right word, in your school, then it might be worth speaking to SLT and seeing if that's something to be investigated. Fortunately, I don't have anything to do with Turing in my college because somebody else does it almost as a full-time full-time job, and given the paperwork and so on, I'd rather stand back. But the opportunities are limitless if that's what you're after, and of course it's, you know, if one does get an award, it is quite a generous award. It's just quite a complicated process for doing it, but we shouldn't forget that touring does exist. And it does cover relatively short distance visits to Germany, Austria and Switzerland, not just to places, glamorous places on the other side of the world. Right, so we are. Now, I'm going to talk really quickly about exchanges and how we at my sixth form college where I teach have developed the concept of an exchange, particularly post-COVID and post-Brexit. And whilst I'm not going to give a big spiel all about exactly what we do at every single stage, I'm going to just cover the main points that we have had to tackle over the last couple of years and how we approach things, plus a couple of sample documents that we use. And if anybody has any questions about exchanges, particularly with Germany, or exchanges in general, then do please drop me a line. I'll be happy to help and to chat things through and to and so on. One of the main things, I suppose, is that we do have an extremely supportive SLT, which does make an awful lot of difference. But even with less supportive SLTs, I think with the right approach and with the right amount of risk assessment and pragmatic solutions to difficult problems, I think even the most hardened can often be convinced to allow an exchange to take place. So I don't think these are in any particular order, but these are just the main issues that we've found that we've had to come across. We've found that having an extremely robust risk assessment which covers things like keeping children safe in education plus COVID and everything else has been really the linchpin of our exchange. Obviously, I can't share the risk assessment that I've used in the past, but because it's kind of personalised to our school. But I'd be happy to talk somebody through it if they wanted to sort of see sections of it or what have you, because of course each risk assessment has to be personalised to the teachers and to the schools provided. But I'd be happy to kind of share examples of what I've used if anybody wants to get in touch and discuss those. We've always had a very open approach about exchanges, so an all cards on table approach from both sides. Being very upfront from the outset about saying, for example, that we may not be able to get quite as many students involved from our end as you might have from your end, talking about the prospects of some students coming over to visit, doing it as a paying guest and things like that. But we've also found that a very upfront all cards on the table approach with parents as well at both ends has been really, really useful, so that there are no nasty surprises halfway along, and expectations are clear from the outset. And that's particularly important, I think, when we have to talk about vetting, DBS vetting here in the UK, and also the concept of vetting or guarantee, if you like, from the partner schools. Denise and I came up last year with the concept of using forms through Microsoft Office for making a bilingual partner matching questionnaire, and that seemed to work quite well. I think we would probably tweak it a little bit if we were going to use it again, but I think it was quite useful. I'm sure Denise will agree, she's nodding, thank goodness, that it was quite useful, because then both parties, both the British side and the German side, got exactly the same questions, and the expectations for people filling it in, for example, the parents and the students were quite clear from the outset. And in the Dropbox, I've put a kind of an anonymized version of that questionnaire as a PDF document, which you're welcome to use as an example, as a sort of a starting point, perhaps for yours as well. I think we'd probably add a few more questions in next time, probably about COVID injections and things like that, but that's for next time. But we found that was quite a helpful starting point. And of course, we could also both access it as teachers, so that we could see all the responses as they came in too, from both sides of the equation. So that's quite helpful. Our pastoral team has always been very involved from the outset of an exchange as well, and there's an understanding that we, at the beginning of an exchange, will say, right, here's the list of the students taking part. Please will you make sure that you let us know of anybody that you think may struggle or have any specific circumstances that we need to be aware of that might affect their ability to take part in an exchange. And our pastoral team is really, really on board with all of this, and they understand why they need to sometimes share that information with us, and it's really beneficial to have that support. So if you're thinking of setting up an exchange, getting them on board is really helpful, because even if there's not necessarily a safeguarding concern, the pastoral team may have sort of a social or kind of welfare related concern that isn't quite safeguarding, but that might still be important for us to understand when matching them up with somebody or what have you, or as to their suitability to be a host family. And we also ask that there's like a reciprocal understanding in writing from each head teacher, that so almost like the buck stops with the head teacher, to say that the head teachers will inform the other team, so the organisers, of any issue that might affect, or as if they're aware of any issue that might affect the student or family's suitability to take part in any of the in the exchange, whether it was a host or a guest. And we find that a combination of all of that, the pastoral team cooperation, that the head teacher, the all cards on the table approach, and being very upfront with everybody right from the outset, combined with our risk assessment and various plan Bs and Cs and Ds, then that tends to convince even the hardest of SLTs that actually, if there is a problem, we have got lots of ways of spotting if a problem is likely to happen, and we've also got a pretty robust response. You know, if a problem does happen, then this is what we would do about it. Let's have a little look what comes next here. Of course, for the UK, we are expected to do DBS volunteer applications for any UK adults. And of course, it's not just parents, but it's also potentially older siblings over the age of 18, or regular visitors to the household, like granny or auntie or what have you. And I have found that when we explain why we have to do it, and the fact that it's a relatively pain-free exercise, the parents and the families are often willing to do so, because we have to explain that otherwise, you know, we are required to do it. I think the Keeping Children Safe in Education document would always advise that it should happen, and we as linguists all always know the difference between should and must, but for the interests of dotting I's and crossing T's, we've always done it. And again, as part of the all cards on the table approach with parents, it hasn't really caused any problems, but it is just a way of reassuring our partner schools that, you know, we're not aware of any issues. But of course, in conjunction with the information that we hold about the students from the pastoral team, because, you know, even a DBS is not necessarily going to show you everything again in the family. So we've always explained that we need that double-sided approach, and that's always that tends to help with our insurance and our SLT. And we've also started to think about the concept of data sharing and GDPR and so on, and especially when we have to ask families. And we didn't do this last summer, did we, Denise? But we're kind of thinking about it potentially for this year, is to do we need to ask the families about whether or not they have been COVID vaccinated, and obviously in Germany this information is considered to be quite private health information, but for some families, for example, it might be quite essential to know whether the family you're sending your child to has or hasn't been vaccinated. So that's a little bit of a problem that we're trying to work through at the moment, and I'm not saying that we've got a solution yet or anywhere near it, but we're working on the basis that we're probably going to have to ask for that information, but that then under GDPR say that we'll get rid of the information if we don't actually need it. But we're working on that a little bit, but that's something else that needs to be kind of thought through before one approaches that. Shared expectations for hosting, I think that ties in with the concept of all cards on the table, setting the ground rules and so on, and so that both sides share the same ground rules in terms of what to do in the event of a problem, so that each side can be sure that when their child is visiting, they're going to be, they know the standards to which they're going to be kept. Oh yes, vaccination status here, and that, again, that's part of the GDPR aspect, I think, and it's as I said, we're working on how to solve that. ask me in about 6 months. We might have got a solution for how to approach this one. But of course, we do have to treat all this kind of information very sensitively under GDPR and be very aware of our duties and our responsibilities under that. I found that if you explain to people why you need the information and then under GDPR and obviously confirm that you are kept to the GDPR and regulations, then they tend to be understanding and share that information, then you can also get rid of it afterwards. What we've also found is teachers staying in a local hotel or B&B is a helpful approach, rather than staying with other teachers or staying in a house, because at least in a hotel or B&B you've got a bit more independence, and obviously you are not dependent on somebody else for transport necessarily, so that in an emergency, for example, if a child needs to be removed or what have you, then they can usually be removed to the same hotel and still be supervised. So that's always the plan B option, isn't it? The nuclear option is to remove somebody if anything goes terribly wrong. But if you're already in the hotel, then it's usually possible to sort of arrange another room or something for for a child in case they need it. Okay, so that's the sort of the boring legal stuff. As I said, if you want to sort of talk over any ideas for exchanges and the practical side of things, then don't hesitate to drop me a line, combined with the approach of organisations like the UK German Connection, who can help provide the funding and the partnerships and the links and so on. Hopefully that will inspire some of you to take the plunge if you haven't already done so and set up an exchange, because as we all know, exchanges are the best way of doing things. Right, let's see. Oh yes, last bit. Sorry, something else that we developed. So Denise will probably recognise this place here in the map in front of us. It's the town where she works. And what we found also useful for our exchange documentation was to do something like have a Google map where all the different addresses were pinpointed, and so and plus the school, plus the local train station, plus where the teachers are staying, and everybody had access to this in the same way that back in the good old day everybody had a photocopied sheet of contact details. And this was really helpful, because for each address we had worked out as teachers how we need to access, how we can get there in an emergency. Is it walkable, is it bikeable, or do we need to get a bus, or do we need to get a taxi, or what have you. And that was a really helpful visual representation of where everybody was staying, and it was also helpful for the other students because they could see where their mates were, and of course it's really helpful in case you do get lost. You can just click on your address and head in that direction on Google Maps. So that was a really helpful thing that we found that others might find helpful too. So that was good. So on to the third bit. Gosh, 10-2, we're doing okay, just about okay, I think, in terms of time. So some of the organisations that you may or may not already be aware of, which are incredibly supportive in the UK, in addition to the ones we've already mentioned, are of course the ever wonderful Association for Language Learning. And if you're not already a member, then I must encourage you to become a member. They have so much support, so much sort of help and knowledge and expertise, not just for German, but for everything, but especially for German. I think I just say that. There are regional groups as well. There's networks, especially for ECTs and trainee teachers too. The German zone is absolutely brilliant. It's got loads and loads of resources on there. Once you become, there's quite a lot of information on the website in general, but there's even more information if you're a paid up member of the association, and you can access the different learning zones and different aspects. And there's so much support and so on. You must get involved, and if you do feel able to take a more active role in the organisation as well, then there are annual elections to council places and committees and so on. So I really would encourage you to get involved. It's really very rewarding and also incredibly helpful. And Language World is also good fun. The conference in March, I think it is next year. It's going to be good. And the British German Association are extremely good as well. There's YouthBridge, which is the sort of the schools wing of it, I suppose is probably the best way of putting it, are also extremely encouraging and supportive in terms of setting up partnerships with different schools, making links, having speakers coming into schools to talk about the value of German and careers and things like that. It's definitely worth joining that. I think membership is free for YouthBridge actually, and there's lots and lots of things going on, and they're always amenable to a phone call to and request for help. There's some over there, so Oxford German Network, King's College, Language Hub Glasgow, and the Deutsch Centre International are just some of the organisations and universities in the UK which have a particularly strong German aspect too. If I haven't mentioned one that should be there, please accept my profuse apologies. But all of these organisations run regular competitions and information sessions, and they have information for students for doing GCSE options, for A-level options, for university, and all sorts, lots and lots and lots of things. The Deutsch Centre International runs some really interesting webinars and talks. I attended one last year or in lockdown at some point, all about slavery and the German experience of slavery, and that was really quite interesting. Concepts that I hadn't explored in German history before. So they're really helpful. And social media, there's lots and lots on social media, as you can imagine. If you are still on Twitter, even after Mr. Musk has taken control of things, then the hashtag MFL Twitterati and the hashtag on Instagram, MFL Insta, will normally give you quite lots of things. But particularly on Facebook, I think that's quite busy for German teachers. I mean, the ones that I tend to use quite a lot are the Teaching German group, the A-level German teachers group, a secondary MFL Matters, and there's lots of other ones as well. These for me are the main three which are relevant for German teachers, and also there are specific groups for the A-level texts and films, Goodbye Lenin and Vorleser and things like that, which are also really, really helpful, especially when it comes to moderating essays and so on. So if you're not involved in that, then do please sign up to those and introduce yourselves. Just some other websites that have been recommended or that I've picked up on the way. Some of which you may know already, for example, Lightbulb Languages, run by the ever amazing Claire Seacombe, Esther Mercier's Atanto, Frau Bustow's Blogspot, the University of Texas Grammar website for Key Stage 5, really, really good, really good. Now the other two at the bottom, Teach It and We Teach MFL, are paid subscription ones. But it might be worth refreshing your memory about the wonderfulness of all these offerings on here and exploring new options if you've not seen those already. Nearly there, 10:56. Primary schools as well, mustn't forget primary schools. The LIPS group on Facebook is fantastic, Languages in Primary Schools. So there is quite a lot of German related sources and information and so on there. And Lightbulb Languages, again, can't praise it enough. It's wonderful, wonderful. The Goethe Institute's Felix and Francie program and resources, lots of things on the BBC, and also the Bears Exchange project that the UK German Connection used to run before COVID for primary schools. Really wonderful. And I gather that they're trying to kind of reopen it and get it back going and going again post COVID. And of course Host a Teacher. So Denise and I spent some time at a local primary school earlier on this week anyway, and that was a lovely opportunity given to us as well, so that was good. So always getting involved. Couple of websites that I use quite a lot in my teaching in general, so not just for German, but which I thought I'd bung on the end here. Textivate, Martin, thank you very much, brilliant resource. Conjugamos is really good for conjugating verbs, conjugation games and so on. I haven't quite found a really good conjugation app yet on your phone, but Conjugamos seems to do the trick. Really good for practicing grammar. And Flippity and Padlet. Now I'm not here to talk about all those things, but these are just my favorite websites at the moment, and I use them quite a lot in my German teaching. And if you want some demonstrations or whatever, then just drop me a line. They do require a bit of a subscription, some of them, but it's worth it, definitely worth it. Now 2 minutes to go. Let's see, questions and answers. Let's see if we've got some questions and answers. Wonderful, let's have a little look. So Matty has said, if you could suggest one thing I could do with my 15 students of German next academic year, what would it be? I'm the only German teacher quite new at teaching and have never organised a trip myself. Thanks for the tips already. Gosh, 15 students of year 9. Oh gosh, what an exciting prospect. It's like having a carte blanche, isn't it? I would suggest getting in touch with the UK German Connection, having a look at some of the projects that they have on the PDF in the Dropbox, maybe trying to set up a collaborative project with a partner school, with them to start with then the aim of potentially joining with them and doing an exchange maybe next year or something like that. I think that would be a really, really good starting point. Talking to the UK German Connection and seeing what they can suggest and what they can offer. And even if you don't have a partner school in mind, then they have lots of contacts and they can obviously usually help you find one as well. So there we go. Oh, there's another question. Have you come across Spellion, a remote exchange service? And if so, how would you rate it? I've never heard of it, I'm afraid. Never heard of it. Is that a thing where they set up an exchange for you? Because that would be quite handy. But I don't know. I've never heard of it, so I couldn't comment on it, I'm afraid. Maybe I'll have to look into that one for next time. There we go. Oh, sorry, I've just thought, Matty, as well, your question about your new students of year 9. Possibly also maybe apply to the UK German Connection for host a teacher as well. You know, get a teacher in, and like we've done with Denise, share the teacher around other local schools too. That would be a really, really good starting point, I think. And taking part in some of the competitions run by the Goethe Institute and the Oxford German Network, another of those organisations. But I think also get yourself onto, as a teacher, get yourself onto the Facebook groups Teaching German, because there are lots and lots of ideas there all the time, and lots of very brainy, experienced people who can share ideas and help talk through things. Some more questions. Oh, there we go. Well, you're welcome. You're welcome, Matt. Lovely to speak to you. Paula, my children are not doing A-levels in German, but would like to keep learning. What's the best way to keep going? Duolingo is pretty good. Maybe if it's possible to try and find a German pen friend, whether that is through the UK German Connection or through the Goethe Institute, or maybe speaking to your German teacher or the German teacher in order to see if they know of anybody who might be able to keep in touch. The thing that I always tell my A-level students as well, or students who are choosing A-levels in year 10 and year 11, is that at university you also don't always need to have an A-level in order to study it at uni or to go abroad. And obviously I try and encourage as many people as possible to take part and to do A-level German, but to kind of keep the flame burning, keep the flame alive with Duolingo and pen friends and so on, but remembering that you can always pick up a language at university, even from scratch too, which is an encouraging thing. Good. Okay, I think it's just gone 11 o'clock and I need to stop now because it's Remembrance Sunday. So thank you very, very much indeed. And do drop me a line if you have any other questions. I think I'm going to have to turn this off. Thank you very much indeed.